Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another great fun-filled spotlight session. Today we have Joey of A Capable Eye Home Inspections. He's going to do a great presentation for us. I will let him take it away. It's all yours.
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to give a little overview about my business. I'm based in Branchburg. My office is in Berkeley Heights. I'll service anywhere north of the Pine Barrens and ideally west of the Pulaski Skyway. So anywhere in north central Jersey is good for me. So obviously, we all know what a home inspection is. We follow the home inspection standards of practice. Every inspector has the same criteria we have to satisfy, but we all see it a little bit differently. So I'll just give you a brief overview of how I like to conduct my inspections. The client calls, we figure out what services they need. Personally, I do radon testing, general home inspections, mold sampling, and occasionally WDI, but I have a great deal with the termite company that gives my clients $50 WDI inspections. So when they call, and I also have managed to get a deal together with some fellow vendors. I have a tank sweep and sewer scope technicians allow me to collect for the client. So even though I don't do those services myself, I'm able to book them and collect the fee. So if they're paying before the inspection, we could book everybody and cut the phone calls for the client down. And if they're paying at the inspection, they could just bring a separate check or however that technician likes to take payment. So once everything is good to go with the inspection, I like to arrive an hour early to start with the grounds and the exterior to cut the time and down for the homeowner and for the agent so that we can get everything documented. I like to go to do my reports in my software. I use Spectora, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. I like to use Spectora and collect my findings and overview photos as I go. So I'll just show you a couple reports to give you an idea of a general. So here's a nice big house. This was a pre-listing inspection, which I want to get into later. So I'll get there an hour early. Oh, share this. Okay. Thank you. So this is a house in Northwest Jersey. Show up an hour early so I can get some overview photos, which I'll go around and see what the house looks like so the client could see what it looked like at the time of the inspection. So go around the perimeter, include these so you could isolate any conditions that are in the report. So that's the exterior. I like to include overview photos of everything, even if there's no defects, because some inspectors like to keep defects only. But if I show you here, I like to divide, keep everything. So we do the elevation photos first, and we do the lots and grounds, show what's inspected. Here's a little key of what each item has concerns, whether it's not present. If it's inspected, it means with no concerns, it means we looked at it, no comment. In the information section, I like to put overview photos. So I know that's not something a lot of people do. Not everyone does, but I think it's kind of important because it kind of helps, put everything into context. So when it comes to inspections, let me bring the zoom back up. So when it comes to inspections, the main thing is to be as thorough as possible without scaring the hell out of the client. And unless the house is holding a gun to someone's head, I'm not going to make it red because it says in the title of the comment, if a railing's low, it shouldn't be like a red safety item because then the whole summary is going to be red. And I like to keep everything in perspective. But if there's a live electric wire dangling in the basement, obviously want to call that out, open junction boxes. So I like to get there an hour early, meet the agent, start with the electric panel systemically, work through the systems. So I'll make sure there's no deficiencies in the electric panel, work my way to the furnace, do that, water heater, check all the plumbing. So it should be about 2.5 hours to 4 hours, depending on the house, inside the house. And if it's a big house or it feels like the time is cramped, I'll wait till the end to do the roofs. For roofs, I do an extension pole with, I gotta get the share the screen again. Oh, good. Share. Right. So I like to do an extension pole on the roof. I'll show you what that looks like. So I don't currently use a drone. I'll get up there if it's a lower slope, but you can see it's a pretty aerial view of everything that we need to see. Put each slope in the report, and then obviously at the end, I try not to say the roof is good to go because there's usually something wrong with it, and we just want to make sure that we get a roofer to, because that's obviously the biggest place for a leak. So even if it looks good, you're going to find something like these exposed fasteners are going to lead to rust if we don't apply sealant annually. So I want to give an example of how I'll handle comments on very similar houses. So uh, sorry guys, I'm trying to toggle between the different windows.
Somebody let in.
Sorry?
Somebody was in the waiting room. There we go. Where were you?
Chrome.
Chrome, yes. There we go.
So, like I was saying about categorizing defects, let's go to HVAC. So one of the major things that we'll find on an inspection, we want to make sure that the combustion exhaust vents for your water heater, your furnaces, and your boilers all get out of the house without any backdraft, which is any gases coming back or the gases condensing in the water, which is an unsafe situation. So here we have a vent. This is going straight out of the chimney. And you can see here, it's evidence that there's incomplete combustion. That means that the gas isn't staying hot enough and working its way out of the roof in a safe manner. But there's people hanging out in the living room upstairs. Everyone's safe. So we don't want to draw undue concern to that. And then here you can see there's white flakes, and that's a similar condition. So potentially there could be a safe situation there. I say repair, replace. I told the client to get an HVAC person there to certify that it's good to go and safe. But at this other property, which is a very similar age and a similar condition house as far as the interior and cosmetically very similar, this is not good. This vent is just dangling inside this masonry chimney here. So gas could just be spilling out here. And then here, so this is the furnace, and this is the water heater going in the same chimney. You can see that this vent isn't connected here. You can see the screws where they used to be fastened together. So this is a very unsafe situation where you could see an opening in the closed vent, which is supposed to eject the gas, whereas on this one, it was just showing that it wasn't optimal. So just wanted to differentiate a very serious condition as far as how we want the client to take that. They both need to be looked at. It's a similar situation, but that's a example of elevated concern for one property versus another. And so when I was talking to Kurt, the other presenter who was supposed to be here, he something came up last minute. He'll give a great presentation in the future about chimneys, but he'll definitely be able to give you more about that. So he told me that one of the things we want to focus about today was getting a home on the market with a pre-listing inspection, and I just wanted to give you guys my view on that, which it costs the same as a buyer's inspection, but it actually generally takes longer because let me put this back on. The pre-listing inspection generally takes longer because the homeowner knows the house. They like to tell stories about every defect that you see. They'll follow you around. So a 2 hour inspection can easily turn into a 5 hour inspection. But the idea is, especially in this market where everything is so tight, we want to get ahead of the major items. So if it's something that's bigger than the client can chew before they sell it, they'll at least want to know so they can prepare for what the other inspector is going to find. So if there's a $5,000 defect with the chimney, like they need a new chimney liner, they might want to know about that first so they could prepare their strategy with their listing agent on how they can handle that condition. Or if they could take care of all the big things, they might want to leave some red meat for the buyer's inspection because then it's not that they're hiding anything. They've addressed things properly, but now they could leave some things that the buyer's inspection could get a full report and they at least can kind of coordinate the way the inspection's going to go. And so I'd love to give you guys a 20% discount through September on free listing inspections if you guys ever find a client who wants to prepare. So if you just call me and let me know that you're with the office, and I'll definitely set that up for you.
Question here,
And
sorry to interrupt. What about buyer's inspection?
what about them?
Would you charge or do you do that? I'm assuming you would
Um,
for a purchase. When you're helping buyers, we do inspections.
yeah. What's the specific question?
The charges for it,
Oh,
would you?
the general, what
Yeah,
the price points are.
correct.
I have a little graph here that I would like to refer to. The new update doesn't have the favorites like where it used to be. Okay, so I like to, so for a house up to 1,000 square feet, I start at $400, and then every 250 feet, I'll charge 25 more. So just as a range, 1,000 square foot house, 400, 1,500 square foot is 450, 2,500. So for every 1,000 feet, it's $100 basically in 20 increments of 250 feet, $25. And then for every 25 years of age for the house, it's $25. So for a smaller house, it tends to be more affordable. And then a larger, older house, it's more expensive. I do it by square foot and age. I don't really nitpick about if it has a crawl space or anything like that. So, did you have any other questions about the
Yeah.
rates?
Now, does that include radon and mold, or all that is extra?
That's all extra. So, a termite inspection, like I said earlier, is $50. Um, the radon test with a home inspection is 150. Independent is 250. So, if someone just needs a radon test, it's 250. And then, like I said in the beginning, the tank sweep guy, the sewer scope guy, I can bill for them through my invoice. So the sewer scope is generally 350 and the tank sweep is one guy's 250 flat and the other guy's by square the acreage of the property. So with to put it into perspective, a 1,500 square foot house would be 650 for radon, home inspection, and termites, and then 3,500 square foot house would be 850 for termites, radon, and general inspection
Got it. Thank you.
as a rough range.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
So I just wanted to introduce myself today and give you guys a little glimpse into the way I see things. I want to make it a little more conversational. I didn't have a rigid presentation planned.
It's all good.
So if you guys have any other question, oh, to answer your other question about mold, I do have a series of services for mold. So a general mold sampling is 400 on top with 3 air samplings. That's 1 exterior control sample and 2 interior samples and an allowance of 1 surface sample. So if someone suspects that it's an older house, they want to see if there's mold, we'll add that to the fee. An outdoor control to compare the indoor samples with. And if we see something in some framing, we could take a swab and get a sample of that so we could get an isolated area where a remediation company might want to focus on. And then when it comes to the fee for a mold inspection, which is a moisture intrusion inspection, so I go around the property, look for any negative grade, anything that will allow water into the home, any conditions with the roof that will let any moisture into the attic and create mold issues. I have a an example for you guys of a mold inspection that I did last month. If I could share that
Oh, can you let
screen.
that person to the right?
Yes,
Oh, wait.
admit.
Thank you.
Okay, so I had a client who had 2 dogs that were having seizures, and they had a bucket list of things they wanted to check out, what might be contributing to that. And someone said it might be mold, so they called me. They called the remediation company. They called me to inspect the house. So when it comes to a mold inspection, I'm looking at the roof, the ground around the house. So, any yards that are sloping towards the house, allowing water to get to the foundation level. So I'm checking the exterior and grounds, structure and basement, HVAC components. So to look inside a representative number of vents, to see if there's any mold growth in there. I look at the plumbing where it comes into the home. There might be a leak, so I'm looking at anything that might have developed around any plumbing areas or leaks. Looking in the attic, interior, and then so what the actual sampling looks like. This would be the outside of the home, and then they want to check the living room because that's where the problems were having, and they suspected that the issues were really prominent in the basement. So, and like I said, I like to give a surface sample, and this is on a painted block foundation wall. The paint had flaked over time at the bottom, so that's a conducive situation to mold. But in general, you don't really look for mold growth on block. But I gave them the sample with the fees, so I took this sample. It was negative, but the actual uh, air samples came back very high. So they'll see photos of the sampling locations, areas where moisture could get in. So this is just like a home inspection with just focusing on, so they had some dislodged shingles, negative grade that was allowing water to get in, some damaged shingles, which obviously you're exposing the building envelope to the elements. So anything that would allow moisture in is going to get into the report. When it comes to the actual sampling, it's in the agreement that we're sampling areas where it's client designated. So I'm not looking for area unless they're generally curious if there's mold, then I'll say I would recommend sampling here, 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 and they'll agree to it. But usually when you get a call for a mold inspection, it's a homeowner that's looking for something like this lady with her dogs. So she kind of had suspicions of where the problem might be. So I put the test there, and in this home there were areas where there were signs of previous remediation, which so if you see framing, exposed framing that's painted white, that's evidence that there was a remediation attempt in the past, whether it was successful or not. A test would verify. Because I tell the client, I'm telling you guys, I'm not a mold expert. I just know I'm just qualified to find where the water's getting in that would have led to that growth. And I say that the actual lab results going to tell you what we want to know about the results. So here is the outdoor control. Nothing. It was the upstairs living room was normal, and there was a problem in the basement. Even though the swab turned up negative, you see there's 60,000 spores per cubic meter of this particular growth here. And this is just a screenshot of the report, but they get a 8-page report that describes the possible health effects or the type of mold that is of concern. So it says this is a health risk, or this is bad for structure, or this is common from plants outside, or it's not common outside, it's common inside. So I don't have all those things memorized. The lab distinguishes what the results are conveying in very clear English for the client to interpret themselves. So the mold is 400 for the three air samples and the surface sample. It starts at up to 1,500 square feet at 650. So it's basically 350 for the report and the processing, and then 300 for that size house. And then every 500 square feet, it's $50 more. So those are less common, the mold assessment, because I'm not an environmental company, but I do provide, like I said, any um, you know, vulnerable areas in the building envelope that could let water in. That's what I'm looking for in sampling and concern areas. And then for sampling with no inspection, and they just say, I want to see if there's mold here without a report, I'll just do the air sampling, and the surface swab would be 500. That's more of an independent service of a home inspection. So there's the 3 services for mold.
I have a question.
Yes.
What is so when we're looking for latent defects like in the home, right? What are the most major things we should be looking for?
In the sense of
In a sense of like to make our clients aware, like what's like the big thing we can see ourselves. It's
some
like,
easy, like the most common things that you'll find on most houses are, you want to look at the yard and see if there's that, make sure that there's a pitch of 6 inches per 10 feet. So you want to make sure that the house is sitting on a mound, because that's where the foundation problems come in. You want to make sure there's enough clearance from the house, and if there's window wells that are close to less than 8 inches from the ground, put window wells. So if someone needs to add dirt and they can maintain that 8-inch clearance, then they want to put window wells, add dirt, and so that's kind of a big deal as far as getting someone to do it, because they're not going to do it for free. So that's like an easy maintenance item that can prevent serious issues. So that being said, you want to make sure that there's positive grade away from the house, that the gutters are letting out the water 6 feet away from the house, which no one does because it looks ugly, but it does protect the house. So you want to make sure that the gutters and the ground don't dump water next to the foundation, because when you get in the foundation, you want to make sure there's no horizontal cracks in the basement, because that's the worst type of crack. That's the soil around the house is saturated with water and it's pushing in to the wall. And there's ways to correct that. They have bracings that they could do, so you don't necessarily have to knock the wall down and rebuild that section of wall. You need an engineer and a contractor to verify the correction, but a lot of times it's those exterior lawn defects, which can, if you get ahead of that, great. You don't have to worry as much about leaks and pressure on the foundation wall. So that's probably the biggest thing in a house, is that making sure it doesn't have horizontal cracks. And then So about cracks, the horizontal's the worst. A vertical crack is not good, but it's not as bad as a horizontal because it's settlement. So one part of the house, let's say it would be caused by the same thing, that water is dislodging the soil on either side of the crack, and it's making it so that the footing is not on the same plane. And then so a vertical crack and step cracking in the corner. So obviously cracks in your foundation are what you'd want to look out for. You'd want to look out for, make sure that the water treatments outside are correct. You want to make sure that there's no gaps in the vents, like I showed you guys in the beginning. That's like a really easy fix for an HVAC person, but it's a slow death that you don't want to expose people to carbon monoxide. So if you see any kind of water stains on the furnace or on the piping, it's an easy thing to keep your eye on. Um, and obviously mold, you wouldn't call it mold because that's the number one way you could get sued, but you'd want to at least recognize. Yeah, that's why in the respect inspection reports we say suspected mold or what appeared to be mold, because it could be just water damage. It could be dirt that something got wet and dirt got caked on it and it looks moldy. You call it mold. The mold remediation, it's 500 for a small area generally, can work its way up to 10 grand in a larger area. So it's a scary problem to have to deal with. So we want to make sure that we don't label things improperly. Yeah, that's the number one thing that they tell you in the inspection training. So what other defects in that regard would you want to know about?
Um, that would pretty much be like things that we would, we can just walk around and kind of like just, oh, okay, there's that, like the vent, like things,
Yeah,
the
so
mold, the horizontal crack,
yeah,
making sure the downspouts are like 6 feet away from the house.
exactly. So you just want to make sure that if you're thinking about water, you want to make sure that you can't get into the party. So
Right.
is there any invitation? Then you could address that. So in a report, if they have to add, sometimes it could be tricky because let's say there's a hill in the back of the house. There's obviously a lot of water pouring into the building, and it's not easy to like they could do add yard drain. That's why we don't come up with the repairs. But just between us, sometimes it's hard to recommend sloping away from the house when there's literally a giant hill that the house is built on a hillside. So sometimes even on a moderate negative slope, something that could be done, it's kind of expensive, is if you put a retaining wall with a drain that would, drain away from the house. So that's always a very uncomfortable situation when you can't see an easy fix. You're cursing the contractor that built the place. You're like, you didn't think about this when you were grading it because it's not that hard to avoid this. But yeah, so that's definitely the number one easy fix for a very painful, expensive problem later, is to make sure what you just said. You said it perfectly.
Okay, awesome. You guys have any questions?
I have one question.
Yes.
Do we need a inspection for the new house or like just?
Yes, I would say so because I actually did an inspection. I said I like to stay west of Pulaski Skyway, but another inspector had something come up. He needed me to help him fill in. I did an inspection at 99 Hudson in Jersey City, and there was nothing there. There was no defects in this condo, and it's always uncomfortable when you can't find a problem because they're paying you. So it's good for the buyer. It's good for me, but it's like anything that you missed is like on blast. So, but they sometimes when it comes to a house, maybe they forgot to do something. It was lunchtime, they never got back to it. So you'll oftentimes see gaps in the soffit areas or flashing wasn't installed. And flashing is the metal that prevents water from getting into changes of direction and penetrations in the roof. So where a dormer comes out of the roof, behind the siding and under the shingles, there's flashing that it's an L shape. So the water goes down and away and into the gutters. So sometimes they're not super specific with the flashing details on a new construction because they're looking at big picture, they have budgets. honestly, they don't build them like they used to. So there's gaps in the soffit. That's the vinyl or aluminum plane at the eaves of a house, and that's where the rafters overhang, and the soffit is the flat area. Sometimes in the really tight areas, they don't cut a piece to fit in there. So just little details that can add that over time can accumulate issues. Or in an old house where there's a sidewall of a roof where a roof ends before the exterior wall of the house, you want to have what's called a diverter flashing, and that's just a piece of metal that directs water from going down the side of the house into the gutter. And you wouldn't really necessarily expect that in a house from the 70s or 60s. But on new construction, you want to be really nitpicky on the most modern expectations of construction. So you can call those things out because water that goes down the siding, sits on the sheathing, can rot the house slowly without you even noticing because the siding looks good, looks brand new, but the water's getting behind there because there's no details to prevent it. So with new builds, or even the pitch of the vents, you want to make sure that it goes up and slightly upward away from the furnace or the hot water heater. If it goes negative, then that's not allowing the gas to rise because gas rises. So if the pitch of the pipe goes down, so with new construction, you want to make sure that things that, weren't serviced, they didn't have their 1 year annual servicing for HVAC. So there could be unsafe installation details that no one called out because they were in a rush or they were going to get to it and forgot or whatever the case may be. So with new construction, it's always a good idea to get inspected because it's going to be it could be a quicker inspection. A lot of times a builder will have someone there, they'll do the blue tape. So you're not really focusing on cosmetic. It's really great when they have someone there because that person likes to mark everything you're saying and you're helping them so that it's not like they're trying to hide the problems. They want to get it taken care of so they can close it. So it just helps the builder, it helps the client, keeps everyone safer because you can't just trust that it's good to go just because it's new. It didn't have time to decay because it may not have been installed properly at the beginning. So that's my 2 cents on new builds.
The charges are same.
Yeah, yes. Because the goal is honestly, I'm being as thorough and honest with the client as I could be, and the goal is to get money for these problems. So they're making the money back from the inspection because they're getting the stuff taken care of or getting credits for it. So it's not a black hole inspection costs. Because I like to be very thorough. I like to, like I showed earlier, get photos of everything. Some people they might see it not to disparage any other inspectors. It's just a choice, a business decision that the more photos you have, the more liability you're opening yourself up to because what's that in the back corner over there? But sometimes, and to be honest, I like to get my inspections back to the client within 24 hours. And I'll tell them if I missed anything the first time, I'm going to call you within a few days. I don't necessarily see everything because I'm getting the big items, but sometimes I'll notice something in my extra photos and I'll say I missed something and let them know. But yeah, so pre-listing inspections are kind of similar to new builds as far as people are confident with the new build or they don't want to get something discovered on their pre-listing inspection that they have to add on the disclosure. They're opening themselves up to more expenses, but a good home inspector is going to find those things either way. So it's like, do you want to get it done before or after the, it's under contract?
Makes sense. Super cool.
Do you guys out there have any more questions?
I have one question, Joey.
Yes.
Does your service include any kind of warranty?
Um, no, but my association does have a warranty program that's available that you could ask me about that because I haven't actually had anyone request that before. It is available, so you could definitely reach out to me and I could look into how I can activate that, to be honest with you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else or? And then you guys could, my preferred social media of choice is Instagram. So you could find me on A Capable Eye Inspections on Instagram. I'm gonna leave some printouts at the office to kind of just give you something to look through if you're interested. And I think that's all I had off the cuff.
Yeah. Do you guys have any more questions? Everyone good?
All good here, thank you.
Awesome. Awesome.
All right, thank you,
Clap
guys.
it up for all us great people in the office today.
And then, guys, whenever.
Here, let's put your information in the chat. Go ahead. You can
Okay, sure.
type in your name and your phone number so everybody can have that.
I also have samples of my reports on the website. Well, good luck with this spring, everyone, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing you guys on the field. There's my information, so hope to hear from you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joey. Thanks a lot, guys, for coming on for another great spotlight session. If you're in the area, come in and have a bagel. We have plenty. Also, everything that's going on with, everything with, that just happened, the sad news that we all got. We're all still really, really dealing with that. That's a huge blow to our office. So I know Raj is posting about the upcoming, ceremony and things like that. So we'll get more news about that as we move ahead. But I wish you all the best and happy weekend. I hope you guys travel safe if you're going anywhere. And I hope to see you all around the office soon.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Lawrence.
You're welcome. See you all later.